Hey Shawn, thank you for coming and sharing your time with us here. How are you doing?
Okay, so first day of kind of ETH Denver after a couple of days of retreat, so it's gonna be good.
How was the retreat? I have to ask.
It was fantastic. I was up in Boulder. The weather was beautiful. It was warm. There's a little bit of snow. It was Boulder. It was beautiful. It's like one of those places that you just wish you could live.
Are you heading to the retreat post ETH Denver as well? Like, is there something?
No, I'm going home to see my family after this. On the road too long.
No, of course. Perfect, Shawn. Let's kick it in. For our listeners and our viewers, I usually ask this question: who are you? I have a fair idea of what you do at Gitcoin, but who are you? How do you explain what you do, and why are you even doing it to a 5-year-old?
Okay, so my passion is governance for Web3. I think that DAOs are these generations' best chance to change the world. And one of the things that changes about DAOs is this thing called governance, which is super unsexy. It's hard, it's difficult, nobody likes to talk about it. And yet it is, I think, one of the things that changes the most between the old world and this new world. So I'm passionate about governance and fixing it for DAOs and Web3.
Wow. Okay. So governance, in fact, I have a panel today on governance and operations. Yes, please. But, okay, so I have a problem with the term governance, right? Like, and the problem is more on the lines of when a couple of experts get into the room, we start talking a lot about how participation is low and that we should probably go try the delegation route and that we should try like removing scams. And there's like a lot of sporadic discussions, but they're all very theoretical, right? I'm going to put you directly on spot here and ask you, based on whatever you have done or whatever you have understood on governance, what do you think really even makes sense today? Like, are there experiments or models that are even closer to solving problems that will probably like take DAOs forward? Or are we still just like juggling around and maybe we need to like speed up our experiments? What should somebody who's thinking about improving governance be really working on?
So I think there's a couple things that we need to recognize. First of all, we have not solved DAO governance. Yeah. We have to accept that as a baseline. And we also have to recognize that standard businesses had the better part of the past 500 years to develop how hierarchies work and how to make decisions in that model. And we've had 4 years.
3-4 years, yeah.
So we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Okay, perfect. Shawn, so let's take DAOs for that matter, right? Like you spend all of your time talking about DAOs. You were so passionate when you were just introducing yourself. And out of all the things in the world, DaoLens folks at DaoLens also have chosen that, okay, we'll work with communities that are decentralized, whether they call themselves a DAO, whether they may not be functioning as a DAO, we'll help them do their stuff. What's that unique hypothesis or what's the conviction that you have which probably drives you to work still till date? Like, do you think that DAOs will probably replace every single group of people, organization that is out there? Do you think that you'd probably start seeing DAOs grow in a different direction because there is this whole idea of smaller guilds or smaller teams? Like I remember this phrase goes by, hey, there's a time for no servers, only peers. And that goes with the idea that when you have like 50,000 people or 20,000 people or even like 1,000 people hanging out in a community, the core work is still being done by only a few people. In fact, at DaoLens, Shawn, if I'm being very honest, we made the mistake of going and assuming that, tasks and bounties are going to drive DAOs forward, and we spent quite some time doing it, and then we realized that even the best of the DAOs, like take examples like Index Co-op and so on, which were completely like community based, now have gone into that state where majority of the work is still being done by the centralized team or like this selected group of people, even though there is full transparency, full decentralization in how that team itself is working. It's a selected group of people who are like in a full-time role who are taking care of most of the stuff because you don't rely on outsiders to like deliver work in time. What's your hypothesis or take on that?
So if you look at the difference between the bull market and the bear market, the bull market, we expanded like crazy in terms of DAOs. We had lots of money. There were lots of people doing all sorts of interesting experience. And then we come into the bear market and everybody constricts, everybody slows down. We look at a runway, we try and determine how much money can we spend over the next few months, and we constrict, right? Yeah. And that's the problem with decentralization versus centralization is it's not a single point. It is a continuum, and sometimes we swing towards decentralization, many people working to try and push the DAO forward. Sometimes we swing back to centralization, which is, this is the core team, and we just got to ship. right?
Yeah.
That's where we are today. Is we just got to ship, we got to make product market fit, we need to extend our runway, and we need to make sure that when the next bull market comes, we're ready to explode. And when the next bull market comes, God willing, we'll go ahead and expand, right, again. And I think we'll see a shift. As long as we believe in the values of decentralization, we're going to swing back towards decentralization. Now, I don't know if that answered your question, but that makes sense?
It did. It brings two more questions to my mind. I heard the term product market fit. I want to break this question down into two parts. One is the product market fit for DAOs in general, right? Like there are some DAOs which are like absolutely killing it, but most of the DAOs out there who start, they're absolutely lost in terms of purpose. They are not functioning as a DAO. They may use the word DAO, but they are like far from being a DAO,
right,
for that matter. What do you think like are really valid use cases today as far as DAOs go, and like DAOs probably which have attained product market fit? And then there's this other side. There are a whole bunch of people who are helping DAOs function. Call it DAO tools, call it DAO infrastructure, call it DAO platforms. Do you think DAO tools also have a product market fit problem? Because somehow the narrative, like be it bull market or bear market, the narrative needs to be about revenue generation. It needs to be about like making things sustainable. Otherwise, things will not really fly in the long run. And I don't see that happening a lot. So do you think DAOs, like what DAOs actually have a product market fit as of today, or going to have it in the near future? And the second question is, do DAO tools have a product market fit problem?
So the first question is, majority of businesses that are in IRL businesses are dead within 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So every business that starts up, chances are it's going to be dead within 2 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with a DAO.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at all the DAOs that we have now, most of them are not going to make it.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We have to be okay with the fact that some of these things are going to die. They're not going to make it. They're not going to make product market fit. Their values are off. Their decisions are bad, and they're going to die. That's okay. There are a small number of them that are going to change the world, right? And every single component, every single one of those failures, if we can take lessons from every single one of those failures and feed it into those that are going to make it, that's why we can change the world. Because if it's all open source and we can share with each other, we don't have to put these walls around ourselves and say, this is intellectual property. Share it and make those few that succeed, explode them.
Yeah.
So regarding DAO tools, the problem with DAO tools is that we're developing the tools without understanding what our internal processes are. And many times that's because our internal processes are still being developed. So it's almost like the DAO needs to figure out what the hell they're doing, and then you put a tool to make that process easier, versus with, I'm going to start with a tool and then try and finesse it into making that the way the DAO works. It can be done if you know what best business practices are to build a tool around that and then shift business processes to that. I don't know that we've done that just yet.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, I understood it, and I'm just going to summarize it so that we're on the same page. I think what you're essentially saying is that businesses, majority of them always fail, and that we need to have the same lens when we are also evaluating DAOs, because it's absolutely fine if 99 or 98 out of every 100 DAO fails,
right,
because that is what has happened. And then because the DAOs are so low in number, it probably hits us harder, or it feels like DAOs have some issue, but DAOs really don't have issue. It's been there for like forever. Like just reflect on every 100 startup that opened up. Probably 98 of them are nowhere there
I've
today.
failed in business a lot.
Yeah, and the second problem to the DAO tool bit is that you're saying that, hey, these tools, they are working in their own silo, or like the DAO processes are emerging in such a dynamic fashion that things are still ambiguous. And there will be a few things which are clear where you can probably make the moves of developing a tool. But on other fronts, it may still be early, and it's very tough to predict what may be the right time to start, because you don't know when the DAOs has like, when a process comes in, when a framework comes in, which is like absolutely right in its practice, or which is going to get adoption, correct?
Vikram, I'd agree with that. And then I would also say the other problem with DAO tools is we're approaching core contributors and community members that are already at maximum capacity, and we approach them and say, here's a tool that can help you. And nobody has the capacity to even step back from using Google, from using Discourse, from using Discord, from using all the tools that are taking up all of our time, to try and figure out, okay, how can this new tool help me? So it's a problem of fit, it's a problem of capacity, and it's also a problem of, I think we're not clear on what our own internal processes are yet, and relying upon a tool to help us solve that, we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go a little vulnerable here and ask something which keeps me awake at night, okay? So I completely get what you just said, but if you reflect on how businesses grow big, you always have to work at the right time, right? Like there is also a timing to the market, and you would never know unless you have made it big. Like you can try and fail, and then you will succeed if you do it
Absolutely.
at the right time. So how should somebody who's probably thinking or who has identified that, okay, DAOs are going to become big, there's going to be some sort of an infrastructure that is going to be needed. You just talked about that there's no basic way of not doing it without Google or without the basic things that we are used to. Let's say I even come up with a solution on that front. But when I'm thinking about it, I always end up debating, should I do it now or should I wait for 2 years to do it? Because maybe by then the infrastructure has popped up a little bit to support me. How should somebody answer that question in their head?
Wow. So what you're saying is, like, if you've got an idea, if you're working on a product, how do you determine, is it the right time? And
Yes.
do you set something aside and say, maybe I'll try it in 2 years? The
In
thing
context
is,
of DAOs.
yeah. But I mean, the thing is, like, as you're building right now, you're learning a ton,
Yeah.
right? And each one of those iterations, the product is getting better and better and better, and you're learning from all the different people that you talk to. That's why this gets exciting, because we're all trying to iterate and we're all learning as we get through this process. And again, God willing, at some point in time, something's going to switch, and you're going to say, okay, I now have a tool that is better than Discord, that's better than Discourse, right? And someone's going to say, that tool makes my life easier, and you won't have to worry about adoption, because people will say, I'm going to use it. That's where DAO tooling needs to get to. It needs to get to the point to where there is no adoption, there is no push for adoption, there is no marketing. It just happened because it makes my life easier. That's the tipping point. When your tool makes someone's life easier, you solve the problem.
Yeah, I guess there's no easy answer. Like, keep building, keep hearing, keep listening, keep changing, until and unless people absolutely fall in love with what you have built, because you are like really improving their life. Awesome. Shawn, switching gears here. Okay, you work a lot on governance.
Yeah.
What are the top 2 or 3 problems that probably you think, like, let's say you have 24 extra hours in the day or a new life. What is it that you want to solve which you are not solving today? Or like probably you know somebody solving which you would love to solve. What are the top 2, 3 problems?
Oh my gosh, so that is such a huge question, because I went through and I documented all of the DAO problems, the DAO governance problems. And I think the last time my list is like 32 different governance problems that we need to solve. And I went through and created a mind map of all the different areas of DAO governance that there are to resolve, whether it be delegation, whether it be being able to compare governance across, what is a state of decentralization, how do we bring in new users, how do we engage users? There's so many problems to solve in DAO governance.
Is it public?
It is public, yeah, and I can share it with you. It is public. There's so many different problems to solve. I think the most important thing for me right now is the coordination, recognizing that DAO governance is around coordinating people and resources. What is the best way to coordinate resources and people in a way that after a decision has been made, maybe not everybody participated in the vote, but everybody had a voice. That is the most important thing. That if I have an opinion on something, I want to be able to say my opinion and be heard. If we can solve that problem, I think DAO governance becomes easier. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, on that note, this was not something I was planning on asking, but it just came to my mind. There has been a lot of talk about punishing people as well. Punishing, not in the true sense of punishment, but let's say we have been having discussions on positive reinforcement always goes a long way. But let's say a vote went bad, right? Like, and you only realize it after it has gone bad or when the impact is visible. You sort of like again ask the community members, do you think it should have been a yes or a no? Right? Like, in people who voted against the ideal outcome can probably like get some sort of a demarcation or marcation saying that, hey, you know what? Here is where you're constantly going wrong in your votes, so that you can probably improve the quality of decision making without like really punishing. So a real punishment would be impacting their reputation in real time, right? Like I go in and say, hey, I'm going to take 2 XP points out of your profile. If let's say we are measuring reputation by XP points, and this I'm saying you keep your XP points, but I'm just also going to tell you that you probably made 2 wrong decisions if you look retrospectively in terms of how the outputs have been. Right? Like, do you think that sort of a measure even makes sense? Because I have seen a lot of negative press around punishment. Like, it just doesn't get received properly.
So we're going to make mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And I think the core thing is making sure the DAO is clear on the values of what the DAO is trying to do. And if I'm clear on what the DAO is trying to do, and that aligns with my personal values, then I'm going to do everything I can to make the DAO succeed. And if we make wrong decisions, Fine, we're going to make wrong decisions. That's okay. We're a ship, we're moving. If we need to make adjustments, let's make adjustments. I think the most important thing is making sure that we're engaging the right people to make the good decisions. And when we make bad decisions, just course correct.
Yeah, but my question here is like, how do you really ensure that that person who made a bad decision is having the realization that their decision was bad and that they need to have course correction?
That's a great point, because how many times in a DAO do we go back and evaluate a project, an initiative, a bounty, a decision?
Almost never.
Never, right? So I think the starting point is, was this, for example, if we're voting on a budget, was it a good use of spend? Did we get the expectation that we thought out of what we shipped, right? Did we get, was it a good, hate to use the term, return on investment, right? First step is, do we even know if it was a good decision or not? So first step is, let's do that evaluation, right? And then it's not so much punishing bad decisions, but it's about learning from those. Things we do need to punish are bad behavior. So if we're talking about bad decisions, don't punish those, learn from them. Bad behavior, yeah, we need to start have a conversation about that. And that comes down to DAO principles. What are the principles of the DAO? What is accepted? What is not accepted? And if you have behavior that's not acceptable according to our principles, let's talk about maybe finding someplace else that's better for you.
Yeah. And I see initiatives on that front. Like, there have been these discussions of retrospective reflection, or like retrospective funding as well, for that matter, or retroactive funding for that matter, or for that matter, also stuff like, hey, milestone based reviews and whatnot. I think there are like these trials, but they have not really like gone full-fledged. Okay, Shawn, so we'll wrap it up here, but how can somebody reach out to you if they have a spark of a thought right now based on whatever we just talked?
So I'm super passionate about DAO governance. Anything, it's like I'm a governor, so that's all we do is talk about governance all the time. You can find me on Twitter as Shawn16400. On Twitter, that's the easiest way to find me. Or Shawn L. Grubb on Twitter.
Perfect. Shawn L. Grubb or Shawn16400. Folks, you know me, I'm Vix_Rum, VIKS_RUM, and DaoLens is hosting something called DAO Soda, which is DAO Solutions, Designs, and Awards. Shawn is going to be one of the mentors, and it's just going to bring in a lot of people into one room to work on tracks which we will define, which you can come and define. The no fine prints, no catches. We're going to help you build. We are going to help you with our guidance. We are going to help you with go-to-market. In the process, we'll probably learn as much from you as well. So more details on our website. We'll be sharing the links in the description as well. Thank you for watching us. And Shawn, thank you for your time here.
Vikram, this is fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity.